Okay. Okay, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerd Church, the place where we get together and read the Catholic lectionary and sometimes tell the worst people in the world that they are very, very wrong. But today we decided to take a break from that because, there are good people in the world, and there are nice people in the world, and there are kind people in the world. Like this young man who the channel name is Bajan Englishman. I don't know if that's his real name or his channel name. But he has a really great channel where he's listening to and reacting to a whole bunch of like religious music he hasn't heard before. And just, he has this really beautiful openness to new experiences. However, I don't think that he has ever like spoken to a Catholic or an Orthodox Christian in his life. And so there was a lot in this video that he was just like, did not he's listening to a video where that's of a Greek Orthodox choir singing a hymn to Mary. And you can tell this poor young man, he literally has like zero frame of reference with which to understand the lyrics of the song. And so we thought that, in just the spirit of kindness and an ecumenical dialogue, we're going to sit here and explain all the theological stuff that's in the song that he missed. And hopefully, when we're done with it, he'll understand why people would take the time to write and compose and record a hymn to the Virgin Mary. So without further ado, I'm going to share the screen and we're going to get to it. Okay. Okay, we should be screen sharing. Okay, just tell me to hit stop whenever you have something to say, and I will get started.
These lyrics are so amazing. I kind of just forgot that I was recording myself.
Sorry, it got.
So I decided to react to this Greek Orthodox Christian chant with subtitles.
What just happened? No, computer, I don't want to do whatever you're trying to make me
More radiant. That's crazy. That is a bar lyric right there. More.
Okay, yes, he's right. Like, and more radiant than the rays of the sun is like a really awesome lyric. And I don't think that he realizes that it comes from the book of Revelation. Because again, the woman clothed with the sun and the moon at her feet. And I cannot stress how hard it is for someone who is raised in and around Catholicism to even hear those words and not immediately go, Mary. It's just, it's in the brain.
I hadn't connected those two.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
I grew up Protestant.
yeah, I know.
That is not well,
Yeah.
technically I still am. I'm not Catholic, but
Yeah.
that would not have been an interpretation of revelations that I had heard.
Yeah. No.
But go ahead, Katie.
No, and I was just going to say, like, and for me, it's like it's like so deep in my head that I just can't get it out.
Exactly. And that idea of something being something or someone being brighter than the sun X amount of times is ubiquitous in the Bible. You find it in the Gospel of Matthew, in Acts, in the book of Revelation, as you said. So
Yeah.
it's interesting,
Yeah.
an
And it's
interesting image.
exactly. And it's also, I think, interesting too, when you consider that in the ancient world, whiteness and brightness, it's all to do with the sun, right? It's gleaming, it's
Mhm.
shining. It's not necessarily an image that is associated with like purity in the sense of like being like free from like any kind of a stain or a spot or anything like that, or free of color. It's the idea that it's so bright that it's almost overwhelming.
Correct.
Yeah. So let's keep going.
Mhm.
Radiant than the rays of the sun. That's a bar. That's a bar. That's an amazing lyric.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about virgin this, virgin that. I'll talk about virgin. Oh my goodness! Like I know Mary was a virgin, but like, was it that big of a deal, man?
Was it that big of a deal? um, yeah. Um, like they had whole church councils that convened in large part to talk about Mary being a virgin. Um, most notably, the Council of Ephesus. Um, and because as we've talked about before, like one of the things that gets to be central in Christianity is this idea, in early Christianity, is this idea of the perpetual virginity of Mary. And and there's all kinds of things that kind of come from that, but it really but at least in Catholic and Orthodox theology, it really just starts with the idea that if Jesus was both God and man in some way united, that his mother is therefore the mother of God. So therefore, she would have to have a higher level of purity than, a normal pregnant woman. And that also that would then just sort of affect her status as a person in such a profound way that her perpetual virginity becomes important. And of course, since in the Bible, there's a whole lot of like moving around. They're in Jerusalem. No, they're in Bethlehem. No, they're in Nazareth. No, they're in Egypt. That it kind of sounds like a family that's trying to, like, a lot of like early critics of Christianity said, this sounds to me like a family that's trying to hide a scandal. And in fact, there were even rumors that that attributed Jesus's paternity to some kind of an encounter, consensual or not, with a Roman centurion named Panthera, which was the other reason why it was so important to the early church to basically to literally to legitimize Jesus, right? Just,
Right.
yeah, and I mean, and I've even wondered if that's part of the reason why in the Bible, Jesus's genealogy is gone through Joseph, right? Because if you think about it, Joseph is really the only one who has a right to say, that's not my kid. I'm not taking care of this child. Mary did something she shouldn't have. So I kind of wonder if by putting the genealogy in terms of Joseph, it's basically saying Joseph said that was his kid. He raised that kid. So therefore, you shut your mouth. You have nothing to talk about.
That
But yeah,
may, that may be the case. Sorry, Amanda.
No, I was just agreeing. I have a comment, but it'll come after all of this. I have to explain something else.
okay.
No
Okay.
problem.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I mean, because in a lot of Protestant thought, this is kind of a non-issue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like it's super important that she is a virgin up to a certain point, but after that it's like a non-issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, another explanation of Mary's perpetual virginity that I just ran across recently on a weird corner of the internet um, is that okay? So Mary is the Ark of the Covenant, right? Her womb is in some sense become the Holy of Holies, right? Well, only people from a priestly lineage were allowed to enter into the Holy of Holies. And since neither Joseph, or if Joseph had fathered biological children, his children, because lineage come the because the tribal lineage comes through the father's line, that basically Joseph and his hypothetical sons that he could have conceived with Mary would not have been from a priestly line. Therefore, they could not be in the Holy of Holies.
Mhm. Yeah.
Which, and that's kind of an interesting thing. It's also a way of explaining why James doesn't become the leader of the whole movement. Because if Jesus had had an adult brother, James would be the logical heir. But if James is a cousin or a stepbrother or an adopted brother or what have you, then James is no longer the logical heir. And then it can be Peter and Paul and everybody else that was important. So my point is that, whether or not you believe in Mary's perpetual virginity, I think that it's fairly easy to see why it became such a big deal in early Christianity, because Mary being a perpetual virgin solves a lot of historical and theological problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I curiously, and this just occurred to me that Mary not becoming a regular wife afterwards is really hard for a lot of Protestant thought about the roles of women,
Yes.
because with the Reformation, for good or for ill, um, perpetual virginity in women is not prized,
Yeah.
as you see in earlier pre-Reformation Christian Catholic thought in the West. I don't know enough
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
East to talk about that, but in the West. So that's kind of that would be inconvenient to
Yes.
perpetuate that. And I never really thought about it because it really kind of was not a super important theological point for me.
Yeah. Well, and
But
also, yeah, I was going to say, and also I think that there's kind of this idea that is kind of just floating around in Catholicism, that basically that Jesus loves his mother as much as any of us love their mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anything that happened to Mary, in a sense, if you say it to a Catholic, you're saying that God thinks that that is something that could be asked of a human being. Whether it's, and there's a whole pile of Catholic devotions that are dedicated to thinking about the things in Mary's life that were very hard, right? Whether that's the flight into Egypt or the crucifixion or what have you. But by saying Jesus and therefore God didn't have a mother who had any biological children except for him, who didn't engage in any kind of a sexual relationship with her husband, it's saying, so therefore women aren't being asked to do that because Jesus didn't ask his mother to do that. Which, kind of reinforces the way that women are given at least a little bit more, even in times and places where women haven't had a whole lot of a choice about whether they got married or not, or who, or, where you might just have your marriage arranged. And that doesn't always involve consulting the girl. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But at the very least, it creates an out where women can take a vow of perpetual virginity, or women can go into a convent. That gives women just that little tiny bit of extra space that I think was something that got lost in the Reformation and was certainly lost when I was growing up in the 1980s, when I was basically told that, like, my job was to get married to a good Catholic boy and have like 12 Catholic babies. And, going into a convent was like not even held up in front of me as an option. Like to my dad, nuns were the ones who hit him on the knuckles with a ruler. Why would you want your daughter to be like that?
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
It was.
I guess. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, I was going to ask if there wasn't any sort of anxiety about being outbred. Because that's, I don't know, that's just like a thing that people are concerned about, white people being outbred, which is quite a thing.
At least in my experience, it wasn't a concern about being outbred. It was a concern that Catholic women of my mother's generation, and maybe like just a little bit younger, and maybe just like a little bit younger than my grandmother, were using contraception at a rate that was about normal for American women as a whole. Not necessarily like, like condoms and, birth control pills once we figured out that they really don't cause miscarriage and things like that. So I think that for my generation, it was kind of just the idea that they had to get it drilled into their head that, like, you have to get married and you have to have babies and you have to follow the church's teaching on contraception. Which, basically resulted in my generation of women growing up, in many cases, believing that we were just going to have to lie to the priest. Are you using birth control? Nope, I'm not. Why do you only have 2 kids? I don't know. Must be a miracle. But anyway, but that's another story. But let's just, but the point is that now that's kind of loosening up a little bit. And like, at least in America, in the last like 10 or 15 years, there's actually been an increase in vocations for women. And there's also been a real resurgence of single women basically taking vows of chastity and, you know, still continuing to live in the world, but basically putting all of their energy into work and into prayer. So it's, you know, it's changing. And I think that part of the reason why there's space to it for it to change is because we do have the example of Mary. So anyway, so let's see what else is going on.
Superior to angel. What?
Yeah. So, yeah, superior to the angels is one of, well, superior to the angels, or specifically Queen of the Angels, is one of the titles that was given to Mary. There's actually some really beautiful art that I hope that anybody who's listening to this will go and check out. And of course, for people living in America, the idea that Mary is the Queen of the Angels is maybe not quite so not quite so surprising, because the full name of the city of LA, which I won't torture Aldo by attempting to say it in Spanish. But what?
It's okay.
Yeah, okay, it's El pueblo de Nuestra Señora La Reina. I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up in my head because I'm nervous about speaking Spanish in front of a native speaker.
You're doing great.
Okay, it's El pueblo del Nuestra Señora La Reina de Los Ángeles.
Mm-hmm.
Or in English, the city of Our Lady, the Queen of the Angels, is the full name of Los Angeles, California.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the city of angels, it's the city of the Queen of the Angels. But yeah, that's the idea. Mary is in heaven, and Mary is making sure that the angels get to work and do what they're supposed to. Okay. Where did my
make it more convincing that, you know, this is legit. That's how I always thought about that. Majestic maiden.
I love that at a certain point he's just vibing out to the music. I'm not sure if it's buffering or if it paused by accident. I'm sorry, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Oh, there we go.
More radiant.
Oh,
that's crazy. to angels. What? Mary superior to angels? That's interesting. I love these lyrics. Bro, these lyrics are absolutely crystal.
I mean, he's right. The music is great and the lyrics are great, but also it's like completely drawn from a whole bunch of really standard prayers and litanies, some of which are just used by the Eastern churches, some of which are shared by both Orthodox and Catholic Christians. So I mean, the person who wrote this music did a really great job, but they had a lot of material to pull from. But but I also like the fact that he's like listening to this and he's like, wow, these are really beautiful things to say, and that's good too.
Bro, who wrote these lyrics? These lyrics are freaking immaculate, actually.
I just love the fact that when he was talking about how great the lyrics were, the first word that immediately popped into his brain was immaculate.
Mhm.
It just, it was just a little coincidence that I just had to laugh.
But it's interesting to notice that, well, you get this expansion and you know, this hyperbole in this kind of hymns, and it is perhaps characteristic of the era because roughly it matches and I'm talking on the Jewish side,
Yeah.
on the things I know about Jewish culture. They had the piyutim, which are liturgical poems, and they take whatever story about the Bible, for example, the Exodus, and they will fill it with adjectives and even more glorious and more pompous images than the ones that actually appear in the text of the Bible. So I guess it's kind of woven into the culture of that time and that region in
Mhm.
some way.
Yeah, well, and hymns often involve a lot of hyperbole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's part of the period, the culture, and the location as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Queen of all. Queen of all. She wasn't a queen, bro. Bro, you know how I honestly thought about Mary? I just thought Mary was just, okay, a random woman that God decided to choose. And
Okay, I have to pause that for a second because like I love you. I love this man. I truly do. He's a good person, but that is like the most shockingly, amazingly Protestant statement that I have ever heard in my entire life. And I mean, and just hearing him think about, like, oh, Mary was this random woman. Like I'm imagining like I want to turn it into a story in my head where like God says to the angel Gabriel, okay, go down there, find a Jewish virgin named Mary and tell her that she's going to be the mother of the Messiah. And then Gabriel says, well, what if she says no? And he goes, dude, like a third of the women in Jerusalem are named Mary. You're going to find one who will say yes. And then like Gabriel is just like going from house to house to house, like this dude at a bar who's like hoping that maybe he'll get lucky and somebody will like give him their phone number, right?
Yeah, I don't know that it's Protestant to think of her as the like some random woman because
Yeah.
that is definitely not part of any sort of take that I would have heard in church growing up. Um, because she's definitely an example of like, being willing to say yes to God.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people in the Bible who are like, no, I do it my way. Thanks, God, but
Yeah.
no. Um, and in the text, she doesn't do that. She's just like, that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And then when the angel's like, yeah, it does. You're fine. It's God math.
Yeah.
But you know,
She's like, oh, okay.
there is also a recurring trope along the Bible. So it's usually the underdog who gets chosen by God because not because perhaps of wealth or brains or strength or something like that, and it is God the one who makes them bigger than life, to say it in some way. And so it really surprises me that this guy is missing the point, right? Because it isn't only about Mary, but it is something that is repeated again and again along the Bible.
Yeah. And again, though, I think that that's, and again, I think that that idea of what does obedience look like and what do the rewards for obedience look like, I think is very different in Protestantism because I think that for a lot of Protestants, it's like the reward for obedience is you get to go to heaven and be with God. And of course, that's how it is for Catholics too. The reward for obedience is you get to go to heaven and be with God, and for Orthodox Christians as well. But the difference, I think, is that for Catholics and Orthodox, when you go to heaven and you're with God, if you do a really, really good job, then you get to be a saint and you get to continue to be like acting in the world and doing things and being a part of things. So, the idea that Mary is taken up to heaven and then becomes the queen of heaven because she's the mother of God makes sense as a reward in a religion where you've kind of already bought into the idea that, of course, humans can be like God's helpers. Alive or dead, humans are God's helpers. And I think I think that Protestant theology sometimes, by de-emphasizing Mary, is also kind of related to the way that Protestantism likes to diminish the importance of doing good works. Because in a sense, it's like Mary obeyed, but by obeying, she was just doing what everybody's called to do. And I don't know, maybe I'm like getting this wrong, but it seems to me that there's like this idea of partnership with God that just isn't in the Protestant theology that I'm familiar with.
I mean, well, Protestant is such a big
Well, yeah,
umbrella.
yeah,
That covers
yeah, true, true.
that covers everybody from the Episcopalians to the Free Will Baptists, and
Yeah, that's true.
it's a pretty broad range of
Yeah,
uh theological thought.
yeah, of
And a lot
course.
of difference between those two things.
Oh yeah, of course. And I'm not trying to like lump all those guys in together. I'm just saying that I do think that in general, one thing that ties a lot of Protestant traditions together is kind of this tendency to emphasize faith over works to the point that works are almost secondary. They're not as big of a thing.
See, this is always like the weird theological tension in Protestant churches. I think though the part where you're talking about how like even in death you can be partnered with God, that's very much definitely um not really a thing in Protestant circles. You see a little bit of that in Episcopalian circles, because in service we do um pray for the dead and that they continue in this life. And that is like completely verboten in like many Protestant areas because like it's like you're done. You're cooked, the turkey comes out of the oven kind of thing when you die. Um so I think that might be part of it. Uh but the works versus faith thing is is messy.
Yeah.
It's messy. Because it's always a conversation, and sometimes that needle is not threaded well.
Yeah.
And sometimes the works become not a list of to don'ts instead
Yeah.
of a list of to dos.
Yeah.
Because to don'ts are easier to measure, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can tell, is the person not doing this?
Hmm.
Okay, so let's
Definitely.
see. Let's see what else is going on.
That just a random virgin woman that God was like, all right, I need somebody to go and send Jesus down. I gotta find a virgin because um
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why it started freezing randomly. And then not giving me a play button. Goodness gracious.
Did you reboot your computer
What?
before the live? Did you reboot your computer?
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything. I
Hmm.
didn't do anything to my computer. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to try closing the tab. I'm going to close the tab and then reopen it. Okay, I apologize for all 36 of our faithful listeners.
I'm pretty sure they understand.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Whomst amongst us has not had a computer with an issue with a computer?
Exactly so. Oops. No, that's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on the thing, not on the live stream. Okay. Just a second. Okay, there we go. Oh, it got muted. Yes, I would very much like to unmute. Okay, that's where we left off, I think.
And that just a random virgin woman that God was like, all right, I need somebody to go and send Jesus down. I gotta find a virgin because make it more convincing that this is legit. That's how I always thought about that. Majestic maiden. I heard the mother. I think Eve. I think that would be more accurate to say for Eve. Not be Mary. Like I said, Mary is just an average woman that just was so happy to be chosen by God. But I love it.
Okay.
Arguably, everybody is just an average person, just so happened to be chosen by God.
Right.
Including Eve.
Yeah. Well, and
I mean, from a theological point, I feel like that's actually super important.
Yeah. And also, like, Mary is like, again, there's about 1,500 years of theology about Mary being the new Eve that was not part of his religious education, like, at all, even a little bit.
Yeah, that's not really part of Protestant conversations about Mary as her as the new Eve. You get Jesus as the new Adam. You don't get Mary as the new Eve.
Right. And I think that what makes the idea of Mary as the new Eve useful, at least for a lot of Catholic women, is that there's this idea of, okay, Jesus plays the Uno reverse card on Adam, but would that really necessarily include women? I mean, you could come up with a really misogynistic interpretation of it that would still leave women on the hook for sin. But by saying, okay, Mary's the new Eve, that kind of shuts all that down. Which, let's not forget that in, the first few hundred years of Christianity, there were a lot of really misogynistic interpretations of things that kind of go away as soon as you say, okay, well, Mary's the new Eve. So Jesus died for everyone's sins. Mary's the new Eve who chose obedience. So now we're all good again, or can be all good again if we, don't run around being mean to each other. And certainly, I've seen, and I think that idea kind of gets downplayed, because if Mary's the new Eve, then Mary has to have all of these other superlative titles attached to her. So she's the Theotokos, she's the Ark of the Covenant, she's the new Eve, she's the Mother of God. But really, all of that comes from this idea of Mary as the Theotokos, the God bearer, the Mother of God. Because, again, the way that it's thought of in Catholic and Orthodox theology is once you've established that Jesus is God and man, then everything sort of just follows logically from that. Which, of course, is the reason why the incarnation is so important, is because if you don't buy that, then pretty much there's a lot of Christian theology that just doesn't make sense. So, and there are people who would say that that's because Christian theology just doesn't make any sense. But, you have to kind of just start with your presuppositions and work from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what else we got. We might actually finish this video in one session. Woohoo, go us.
This song is so immaculate that I just have to just sit down and just hear it, Tree of life. Tree of life. Tree of life. What do they mean by that? What do they mean by tree of life? I've never heard of tree of life. What?
Yeah, actually, Tree of Life, I will admit, is a new one for me too. That seems to be like a specifically Eastern Christian title for Mary. Although I'm sure that it's popped up somewhere in Catholic theology and or in a Catholic litany somewhere, and I'm just not aware of it, because Mary has so many titles. It's kind of like, and part of that, of course, is coming out of the European, just sort of political traditions, where you have title, where you'll have someone's name and it's like title on title on title stacked up after it, like the Habsburg Emperor Carlos V. There's actually a surviving document where the entire first page is just his names and titles. Because in this particular document, they included all of them. And I'm pretty sure you could fill up a small book just with titles of the Virgin Mary.
Is that a European thing, or is that just kind of
It's, well, I mean, like the Eastern Roman Empire also loved title stacking. So it's not just a European thing, but yeah, it's that kind, but at least, and yes, I mean, obviously other cultures that have some kind of an imperial dynasty, title stacking is pretty common. But in the particular case of the Virgin Mary, I think that the way that the Virgin Mary gets title on title on title stacked on her is very much sort of coming out of the sort of late antiquity and then into the medieval period, when that becomes just standard practice in Europe.
I mean, because arguably, God in scripture has multiple names, and in Islam, God has 99.
Yeah,
and you know,
yeah.
You see that with like other deities in
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
the
it's
Near East.
yeah. Well, no, I mean, okay, title stacking, yeah, it is broader than that. But what I guess what I'm trying to say is that the way that is that Mary starts getting historically, Mary starts getting all of these titles attached to her during the European Middle Ages.
Oh, yeah. Well, they have that custom
yeah, exactly. So it's like
those are growing out of the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like she gets the title, like early on, she gets the title Theotokos, and she's the Blessed Virgin, she's the Mother of God. But then it's not until later on, like maybe like the 11th and 12th century, when you see this explosion in devotion to the Virgin Mary, that she starts getting like massive, massive numbers of titles in the West. In the East, she also gets a lot of titles. And again, that's coming out of this sort of Eastern Roman imperial tradition that is very big on, we're going to just keep giving people titles. Because, although one of my friends sometimes jokes that like the titles of the Virgin Mary are like really just like Jesus giving his mother like a new shirt or a coffee mug. Like every year on her birthday, it's like, here here mom, I brought you flowers, yay. I don't
now I've got a Mary with a best mom ever mug in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Of course Mary has a best mom ever mug. What are you talking about?
She doesn't. When she picks it.
I read something somewhere where somebody said that they dreamed of, on Father's Day, getting a whole bunch of t-shirts that say, I'm not a stepdad, I'm a dad who stepped up, and driving around and putting them on statues of Saint Joseph. So, that he's not the idea is that he's not a stepfather, he's a father, and he just stepped in to take care of everyone. But yeah. Now we're supplicating. Okay, this gentleman is either cool with the idea that Catholics pray to the Virgin Mary and ask for her help and intercession, or he's so incredibly Protestant that he didn't even pick up on the fact that they're asking the Virgin Mary to pray for them.
Probably the second.
Yeah,
Just
probably.
Just saying.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, bro. These lyrics are so amazing. I kind of just forgot that I was recording myself. Oh shit. Oh, yo, I honestly was feeling these lyrics so much. I was like, oh yeah, I'm recording myself. Oh.
Which, of course, is the point of this kind of chant and this kind of music. It has this, it just has this really beautiful, hypnotic, meditative quality. And you just listen to it, and your brain just kind of goes, everything's good, everything's happy. I can just relax and be and just rejoice, and it's good. And I think it's really cool that, even somebody who has absolutely no frame of reference for this song whatsoever is still able to appreciate, like, kind of just that quality in the music. That just kind of universal way that music can speak to people, and it's really nice.
Amazing. Amazing. Too good. Too good that I just got caught up in the song. I mean, very chill reaction today. I mean, if you want more of these type of reactions, give me suggestions in the comments below. Eventually, I will do it. Most of my reactions are from suggestions anyways. But I want to do some of my own personal reactions that I want to react to. not just other
Okay.
people's suggestions. So, but if you got any more suggestions,
Okay, I'm going to take us out of screen sharing. And here we go. So yeah, that's the video. You know, just I thought we kind of needed a break from
Terrible people.
terrible people being terrible, and instead we got a nice person being really nice. And I hope that we were able to, I know we kind of got off into some tangents, as we will do, but I hope that we kind of gave him enough of a frame of reference to just, maybe, go back and listen to the song, and maybe, listen to it with new ears, and maybe appreciate the love for the Virgin Mary that's contained in that song. And just maybe appreciate it on an even deeper level than he already did. And that's cool.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is what we've got going on for next week. The video for the third Sunday in Lent is going to get edited and put up online as soon as my daughter can sit down with me and help me learn how to operate editing software. Hopefully, it won't have to wait until I'm back in town. But on Sunday, we will still be having our regularly scheduled live stream for the fourth Sunday in Lent. And then next week on Thursday, Aldo, you found an exorcist video that we still want to do? Were you
That's
still wanting to do that
correct.
next week?
Sure, let's do
Yeah.
it.
So next Thursday, we are going to dip our toes into the wacky and strange and sometimes kind of disturbing and sometimes kind of heterodox world of celebrity Catholic exorcists when we watch a video that Aldo found that's an interview with Father Chad Rippinger.
Celebrity? We're calling, oh my goodness.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Like maybe not. Maybe not like outside of Catholic circles,
Well,
but
yeah, there's different levels of celebrity.
yeah, there's
Yes.
different levels of celebrity. But yeah, no, like Chad Rippinger has books that have sold like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of copies. And some people, I think, kind of read his books as kind of a safe version of horror novels or horror movies. And some people take him really, really seriously. And sometimes that's not entirely a good thing, as we will find out next week.
That's crazy pants.
So,
That sounds so strange.
yeah.
New world to me.
Yes. Oh, yes. It will be a ride. But before that, but that's a week from today. And then on Sunday, we're just going to be on our normal time at our normal channel, working through the fourth Sunday in Lent. So 4 Sundays. Yes. Almost there. Almost there. We're almost done. We can do it. If you're fasting, you can do it. I believe in you. If you're not fasting, it's not too late to start, or not. It's up to you. Make yourself happy. But you know what? Maybe take a couple of days to sort of look at your life and look at your consumption habits, because for a lot of us, that's basically what Lent is. It's a good period of time to just do a little check-in and say, am I happy with the food I'm eating? Am I happy with where it comes from? And all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, with no further ado, we will say goodbye, and we will see